face again.
Is it okay now?
You have to... Hello, hello. Welcome to everyone in this Lead Tomorrow speaker session. My name is Dr. Nada Sayarh. It's my pleasure to have you here with us. It's also my pleasure to have three fantastic speakers and experts of their area. So today I have Dr. Arindam Banerjee with us. Dr. Banerjee is the Associate Professor and Assistant Dean of the Global MBA and the Master in Business Administration at SP Jain Global School of Management. Dr. Arindam is an Associate Professor of Finance. He has had so many titles and reward in this area I cannot even count, but this year he was just awarded the All India Management Scholar of International at the Indian Institute of Management. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Education 2.0 Outstanding Leadership Award in 2022 and Top 100 Leaders in Education in 2019. I'm going to stop at this. I'm not going to tell the other rewards. There are so many of them. I think that's enough. Also, Dr. Banerjee loves to travel. He has traveled across the globe. And in other LinkedIn, maybe he's going to tell us about his traveling adventures. He also lectured in more than 20 countries across Asia, Africa, Australia, promoting the need of education across every strata of society. Okay, Dr. Arindam, welcome.
Thank you so much. And hoping to have a wonderful interaction, you being the wonderful moderator and my fellow colleagues.
All right. Welcome, Dr. Arindam. Second, I have the second wonderful speaker, Dr. Atul Aundhekar, who is founder and CEO of A3 Healthtech. He's a healthcare professional with 28 plus years of experience in strategy, planning, business transformation, P&L management, optimizing patient services, and enhancing market share. He has a master in business administration, an executive one from Jain, and he managed to achieve business growth in his area and maximizing the competitive strength for long-term success, leading healthcare organizations to significantly outpace the initial growth predictions. It is a pleasure to have you with us, Dr. Atul. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Nada. And it is a pleasure being with a think tank which is so deep and so vast. And I think it will be an exciting session. Looking forward to it, that we want to contribute our best for the knowledge of everybody who's attending it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So our third wonderful speaker is Mr. Kushagra Poddar, who is a senior manager at Bain and Company. He has 14 plus years of experience. Kushagra Poddar is currently part of a private equity and growth PEG practice at Bain & Co. BCN. So he has worked previously as a senior investment management in an investment firm in Qatar. He also has consulted with clients across multiple industries, including healthcare, education, financial services, retail, media, and various business segments like government, SMEs, private equity, corporate, and geographies in the US, Middle East, and India. So it is a pleasure to have you with us, Mr. Kushagra. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Nada, and I'm honored to be part of this esteemed panel and really talk about a subject that is close to my heart. Education is something that has remained part of me even after I've graduated. Almost 12 years ago. So really looking forward to a very interactive and engaging discussion today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being with us. And I'm going to introduce myself as well. So my name is Dr. Nada Sayarh. I am an associate professor of marketing and strategy here at SPJ. I'm also the assistant dean of executive MBA. I have lived in 4 continents before, so North Africa, USA, Europe, and now moving to the Middle East. I have 20 plus of years of experience in marketing. I have worked previously for Procter & Gamble, Colgate-Palmolive, Shell. I have 15 plus years of experience in academia in Switzerland, in Geneva, where I have done teaching, research, consultancy, supervision, community management. My passion is really to bridge academia and the industry, because I believe that there are a lot of opportunities for cross-fertilization between these two fields that should be explored and that should be leveraged to provide the best education for future leaders. So I have a PhD from the University of Geneva, an MBA from the US, and a BBA from Hawaiian University in Morocco. So that's all about me. So now let's move straight ahead to our questions. And I'm going to be asking my first question to my lovely panel. So the first one is, what do you think are some of the key challenges faced by business schools in bridging the teaching learning gap? And how can they be addressed? Dr. Arindam?
Thank you. It's always tough to be opening batsman facing the fastest pace attacks. But being from a cricket-loving nation, I think I can handle that. Thank you, and welcome on board, everyone, and all my audiences. I'm sure there would be a lot of mutual knowledge sharing across. Over the period of time, as you know, Dr. Nada, we all know, whether in education or not, the kind of information dissemination that has happened across the globe is much faster than we can keep pace with. And today, information is primarily available free of cost, which once upon a time used to be something we used to struggle going to the library and finding information. Today, it's not. So that is where the problem or the challenge first begins with. Students are no more looking for information. And when students, I mean business school students, they primarily truly value more than information, application of that knowledge. And that is where the business school find it so challenging to keep in pace with the changing curriculum, changing pedagogy, and the intense level of engagement that today every student is looking for. When we talk about the bridging that gap between teaching and learning, we all know whatever we teach in the class doesn't translate into complete learning. Reason one, different students come from different strata of the society. They come from different backgrounds, academic background. They come from different professional background. Their way of adaptability to the education is also very different from the way they come from the different geographical boundaries. As a result of which, one of the biggest challenge that business schools, including us, we find that how to create a learning environment, not a teaching environment, which is more to do with focusing on the class being student centric rather than instructor or professor centric. So the primary challenge which we face is how we can take the content to the heart and the soul of the student, not just superficially, I would say brushing across the content. Another big challenge that we today face is on engagement. And when I talk of engagement, it's about engaging in the balancing act between theoretical and practical learning. Without getting into specific, there are many leading business schools which still practice a theoretical chalk and talk method. But I think that's a bygone. It's thing of the past. Today, it's all about experiential learning, engaging learning, simulated learning, and ensuring that application and analysis happens while the classroom teaching is on. So I think these are some of the basic elements that we can think of in terms of what is the gap that today lies between teaching and learning, where the equation is never equated.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Arindam. So, Dr. Atul, Mr. Kushagra, and do you want to add anything to this point?
Yeah, just to add to Dr. Arindam's the opening statement. Now he's taken a single and I am at the batting end. So in the cricketing language, I was non-striker up till now. So let me start with the same pace where Dr. Arindam has started. So the key challenges I have given an acronym called RIFT. Rift, the dictionary meaning of rift is obviously a gap, or kind of a gap between two very nice relationship, or a rift comes in the relationship kind of. So the rift stands for R, when I see that the R stands for real world exposure and statistics. So when we are talking about the MBA programs, as Professor Arindam has obviously said the same thing, that the real life examples, the real life business and the statistics are to be known to the students. And as the students are coming from various backgrounds, and they come from the cross section of the society, wherein their cultural backgrounds are different, their economical backgrounds are different, even their educational and academic backgrounds, which are completely diversified. I think giving them exposure to the real world and the statistics of real world is mostly important. And how that can be done is, again, by the guest lectures, field trips, industry visits, and financial reports to be submitted to them, and the real-time financial reports. I mean, because of the public companies and all that, these reports are available in public domain, and that can be discussed. I think that is one of the options which I feel. The I of the rift stands for insufficient practical learning. When we say practical learning opportunities, is as in hand-on experience for these people to do something, mud into the industry experiences and solve the real life problems. So that insufficiency remains as the program. The the F of the RIFT stands for the fullest student engagement and the problem of gap solving. So basically, the engagement gap happens wherein the teachers are up to date with the knowledge, and even the teachers want to give the fullest of the knowledge. I think at the level of grasping, there are bit of insufficiencies from the student point of view, wherein the engagement is not the fullest. And I think that fullest of the engagement may happen when the education becomes interactive. So problems solving, case studies, and group work, wherein you start learning from the peers. I think those are the areas where the fullest of student engagement will start. And the T again, T which we were before started, and that is the technology. I think technology is something which is changing at a pace which is breathtaking for the students and the faculties as well. So what I would say is that gap which is created by technology has to be filled by both the fraternity as well as the faculty and the students. And how do we do that is to invest in I think the school should invest in the latest technology, obviously. At the same time, students and teachers should interactively deal with the technology changes. And I think it's a combined effort. It's not at one end, like the teachers get the classes for the right technology, and the students lag behind, or the other way around. But I think it's a combined effort wherein both has to take part with the learning and the learning curve of technology. And I think
Dr. Atul, I just want to dive a little bit down into your personal experience. And I would like to know, how has your MBA program prepared you for your career? And what are your experiences with the teaching learning gap from that perspective?
Oh, what a fantastic question! Because I still remember when I used to be in MBA school, and people used to ask me, with my prefix being doctor, they used to ask me, "Are you a real doctor or a PhD doctor?" So, and then some people went ahead and asked even that injection doctor who gives injection to patients. I said, yes, yes. You inject information, I inject medicines. So basically, my preparation of career happened as I was going through. I called my MBA program as an immersion process. So I have to do a lot of unlearning to be a good student in the class. The reason is, I came with a baggage of all the medical knowledge with me. And, medical knowledge per se, it becomes your thinking pattern becomes very, very segmented. And you start thinking in a very watertight compartment. The first thing which what I had done is to broaden my canvas. And I think when I was going to the financial accounting, financial management, which is very close to Professor Arindam's heart, the barrier broke. And then I was like a commerce student. I was learning how to do balance it out. What is the left side and what is the right side? So I think that broadened the career. Second thing is, I think learning the jargons of management. It is not for the basically learning the management jargons is not to throw your knowledge and be the best one in the room. But I think when you relate to the phenomenon, and especially the strategies which work in the management, you have to learn them. When people talk, I think your acceptance of the language and articulation has to be relevant when we come to the management language. So as we say in healthcare, we use our language, people don't understand. So similarly in management, when we use our language, layman never understands. So we like that way. Sensitivity to numbers was one of the biggest thing which I learned with the MBA program. And I believe one of my owners and promoter, where I was working with, which is the largest group of GCC in retail, and they were into healthcare vertical, and I was starting the healthcare vertical for them for eye care clinics. So during that days, my owner used to tell me, for doctors 2 + 2 is 5. I said, you're absolutely right. For doctors, always 2 + 2 is 5. And I said, but when I came to the management school, I learned 2 plus 2 is not 5, it is 2 plus 2 is 22. Because that broadened my canvas. And I think the business understanding, wherein the customization of particular business, the knowledge of management to be applied, and the management basic phenomena and the fundamentals of management has to be applied to a particular industry. See, I think industries may change, but the fundamentals, you yourself, Dr. Nada, is a stalwart in marketing, and I personally feel that marketing is such a fraternity wherein to sell. Usually, there are enough and more Hollywood examples of sell me the pen, sell me the bottle, and so whatever you sell, there is like the basic principles remain the same. Consumer and the consumer behavior versus the kind of people's aspirations. And I think that applies to our discussion today also. In the forthcoming questions, I think we will be discussing more about how the assumptions and aspirations of the newly management students have changed. Like gone are the days when students used to, look at MBA as just a job earning program. Today, with the buzzword of startups and the innovations, I think people are looking at a different way of management today, and that's, I think, is the most important thing. And I think it made a, in one word, if I have to sum up what MBA done to me, it changed the attributes in me. That's all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atul, for this very insightful intervention. You said something that is very interesting and that we often notice with our MBA students is this whole process of unlearning and relearning. With everything that's happening around in the world, we find that a lot of the students have to go through that process. And this is exactly how they develop their mental agility, and they open new pathways, neurological pathways, to be able to acquire these new skills. And this mental agility is a very critical skills with everything that's happening around the world and all these changes and the future jobs and the dynamics of the various industries. So thank you for that. Now I'm going to move to Mr. Kushagra. Maybe you have something to add to the first question before I give you a specific question.
No, I think I was really able to relate to a lot to what Dr. Atul said. Going back to my MBA days in 2008, I would probably bring in one angle that over the last 10 years, when I have engaged with a lot of prospective students who wanted to do an MBA and reached out for feedback, I find that often, there is a lack of clarity with people in terms of why they want to do an MBA. And you pose them this question that what is your purpose of doing an MBA, and accordingly which school you want. The decision of a B school is not necessarily always driven by what is my purpose, right? And I think that is also a role that a B school or a business school has to play in educating that not all business schools are the same. The degree is called MBA, and a Harvard gives an MBA, and an SPGN gives an MBA, and an IM gives an MBA. But these three, have their own different niche, right? And as a student, you need to understand where our niche is as a B school, and come to us for that, because we are good at certain things. We cannot be good at everything. So I think that is one role that a business school needs to evolve, and probably bring out that nuance that yes, we are doing an MBA, but this is our specialty, right? I know, like back in 2008, why I went to SPJN, right? Because I, like, say, I preferred a 1 year course. I had done my finance work, so it could give me the super specialization, and having that clarity helped me make the maximum out of my experience, during that MBA days. But sometimes I just feel that, when you just, let's say, graduate, get into the MBA, you are still into that academic mode. And while academics is good, MBA is actually much more than academics, right? It's the core of MBA is not to give you academic content, right? It's give you that experience, bring that rigor in you, enhance your interpersonal skills. So that benefit is what students are probably not able to take if that clarity is missing in terms of when they get into the MBA. So that's one, point I really think that B schools need to kind of, bring to fore. And I would probably just touch upon the point that Dr. Banerjee made about content, right? That what is the content that you want to give in the MBA, because there is so much information already available. And I'm also trying to, let's say, bring in the analogy of when I look at my children's school, right? And the kind of schooling that say me and my brothers went through versus the kind of schooling that say our children are facing, the number of subjects is much lesser, right? Does it mean that they're learning less? It's no. It's just that the focus is there, and the focus is more in terms of enjoying what you're learning, knowing, and really understanding and grasping what you're learning, rather than just touching on too many things at a superficial level. So I think that is also one aspect that a lot of the B schools probably need to kind of look at, and might help them, let's say, okay, this is really the core of our program, and most of our students will be able to grasp it. And I, having now sat on the other side of the table, as a recruiter, and interviewed so many candidates coming out of B school, there is a huge amount of heterogeneity in terms of the candidates that come out of the school, right? So if I as an employer go for a placement, you have a general expectation that a student will come with a minimum standard. Like if someone's passing out of a GMBA, you have that expectation. But I think over time that heterogeneity has increased, and that is where the B schools need to understand that what is driving it, right? Because yes, you have a diverse pool of candidates coming in, whose ability to grasp content and all of that is different. But when these people go into the job market, into the corporate world has a certain level of expectation. And when there is too much diversity, then it's not easy for the corporate world to accept that. So I would say that is also one aspect that these schools really need to kind of look at in terms of when they bring in the curriculum. And I think the points that Dr. Atul mentioned about bringing in the alumni into the picture, because in hindsight we are always wiser, right, to give that feedback and help fine tune some of these aspects.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kushagra. I think your points are very insightful, and I like how you are completing the picture of what we have been discussing. You are right. People need to ask themselves which MBA, and they should not shy away from asking the questions. So often people that stay confused are the people who do not use platforms and forums and connect with the schools that they're interested in and ask all the questions. Sometimes you have a lot of people who are there to clear their doubts. So I would encourage the students who would be interested to go and ask the right questions because this will provide them with a lot of insightful answers, because the academics are dealing with different profiles, like you said, different objectives, different career objectives, and they are able to provide them with the right answer. The second thing you talked about is the point of heterogeneity, where you are right. And this is also what I always tell the candidates of the EMBA, is that this is a collaboration. This is not a one-way street. Okay, and it's like you go to a gym. I always like to give them the metaphor of the gym. You go to the gym and you have all this beautiful equipment. We can give you the best cutting edge equipment. If you don't go and crunch these abs, you will not have that six packs. And obviously the ones who crunch harder will have a better, muscles and so on. And those who will not make the effort will not be as successful. So the role of the school is to provide all the tools or the environments and so on, but it's really the outcome is the collaborative work between these two entities. So I will ask you another question. So what do you think can be done to better align the MBA curriculum with the needs of the job market?
See, again, I think
I'm giving you a question
no,
about the doubt you have presented. I'm giving you the question about it.
right. I think this is probably the most pressing question that every B school is thinking of, right? Day in and day out,
Yeah.
right? Because you would want your students to be accepted, and in much in demand in the job market, right? Uh, I think there is also no rocket science about it. I think a lot of the B schools are trying everything possible, engaging with the alumni. Uh, I think it really starts at the intake process. How stringent and how robust is your intake process? And when I say stringent and robust does not always mean in terms of the academic part of the intake process, right, where you have to get a score and that's how you get it. Because the a lot of MBA is peer to peer learning, right, and therefore the quality of intake actually determines the quality of peer learning that will happen in that particular class, right. What is the level of diversity in that batch, what is the level of experience in that batch, so that is where I think it really starts. I think once, as you said, right, if the input is good, the output most times will be bit good. So it really starts there, right. I think second part in terms of content is being more agile and nimble. I remember in the old days, when we were changing curriculum little bit regularly, people were like, why we are changing it so regularly, the corporate world will not understand it. But I think now it's the reverse, right? You have to be agile, you have to be nimble. Like I remember when we were getting into corporate in our days, you used to be good in Microsoft Office, right, because that is the tool that you used to work on. Now that's gone. You need to be good in data analytics and data visualization, because that's replacing an Excel, right? So that is the core, and this is the agility that every B school has to have. I think the connect with the industry and faculty goes without saying, but it has to be very deep, right? I mean, I agree with Dr. Atul that having guest lectures and bringing that experience helps, but probably going one step further and actually having, let's say, alumni as part of your curriculum design board, right, or curriculum advisory committees and those committees, right. So having that deep engagement with your alumni, with the industry, is I would say the third point. And at the end, I would probably say that specifically this applies to more B schools, let's say in India and in the Middle East and this part of the world where B schools are still looked at in quote unquote placement agencies, to change that mindset a little bit, right? That give them the networking platform and get people, force people to go out and get the desired job for themselves, right? Yes, it's very good that you attract the big brands to come and take the people on board, which is amazing, but probably somewhere it does not push the students enough to develop that networking skills, develop that communication skills to really go out, find where they want to work, which field they want to work, build that contacts, and actually get create a place for themselves in that space.
Okay, thank you so much. And we have the audience already reacting with their comments. The audience is very positive. They're saying this is a very interesting topic. So this is Mr. Abdurrahman. And then we have Captain Gurjit, who likes Dr. Atul's intervention. He's saying that you explained everything very well. I can definitely relate to your thoughts. And he also thinks that Mr. Kushagra did a great job of relating the practical components of the MBA that the business world is anticipating. And then we have a question from Abdurrahman Ramli, who is saying, how do you think the emotional intelligence can reduce the gap? So
Can I come in?
Yes.
Yeah. When we talk about emotional intelligence, we talk about emotional quotient. I think, just to add to what Kushagra was very nicely explaining, that, how the job market gap and, the MBA curriculum and job market is to be aligned. I think Professor Arindam and Mr. Kushagra will agree with me that, the way you grow in your organization, your technical skills are much less required, and your emotional quotient and your emotional intelligence is more required. So basically, people who rose to the leadership roles are not the best in technology or best in that particular industry knowledge or a domain knowledge. They are best in people management, and I think this is the biggest factor. And when we talk about the intake of good students, intake of nerds, to be in other words, I think how do we turn these nerds to leaders is most important aspect of a B school. Today, the best of the B schools, what they do is they do not provide, they do not produce the best of the management students or management graduates. They provide society the good leaders. And I think that is the need of the hour today, that I'm thankful to Abdurrahman. What a beautiful question he asked, and that's a most pertinent question. I think what is the value system which we are going to build in. Today we don't want to have another layman happening here. Today we don't want to have another. I don't want to say other names which is not been proved, but another gaps and scams happening here in the industry today, and we don't want to see the major business scenario and market scenario to see any kind of Ponzi schemes. We want people to deliver business on business ethics, and that is the reason Professor Arindam and during my days we used to have a long discussion that business ethics should be the part of curriculum for business schools. And I think people should, especially the B schools, should generate business values and leadership skills. And there comes the soft skills, how to deal with people. You cannot see, there is no medicine, there is no pill that you have it and you become emotionally intelligent or your EQ increases. But I think these are the values which grow over a time, and softening the authoritative part or the administrative part of the managers and the prospective graduates from management school has to be done in such a way that we generate the right leaders which take care of the society and which take care of the businesses in the business ethical way, which understand the corporate governance and do things which are rightful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atul. Maybe Dr. Arindam, you want to add something?
Well, I think, I was absolutely mesmerized, to be very honest, and very captivated by the very intense, emotional words which were spoken by my fellow panelists. I think additional to what I am going to speak in terms of the two questions combined, one was on emotional intelligence. I think it all boils down how a person can handle situations which he or she is not prepared for. I used to have a dean of mine once who always used to tell me, Arindam, be prepared for the unprepared. And I think I used to recall him most during my COVID days. Nobody told us how to prepare for, I think, the worst of the events of the century. But if you look, a direct implication of that is the outcome of businesses which actually survived, and some thrived, and those who could not. It's a clear indication businesses that could not survive during that period did not have a bad business model, but only think they were not really prepared for any such eventuality. They were not able to deal with their customers, their suppliers, their operations, the people who are working within them. And today, there are some companies who actually are calling back the people who left during that pandemic, whereas in some companies, people don't want to even go to those companies back because they did not treat them well. I think one of the very important elements that we don't teach in business schools, which is a very important part of this gap, is to be empathetic. It's a very important element. We need to be into some other people's shoes in order to understand how it feels and how best you can actually learn those things than a business school. Because immediately after the business school, when you're out of a business school, you're going to join a corporate world, and that is going to be your future. So I think when it comes to the soft skills, one of the very important areas is to understand not only upskilling the soft skills, but to understand human behavior. It's a very important element. As Dr. Atul said, I believe my subject, finance, is the easiest subject to teach. The most difficult subject is marketing because you're dealing with people. It's most difficult. If you can manage a person, you can manage an organization. So great organizations were made of brilliant leaders.
And it marks them with you as part of continuing. That's something
Absolutely.
That's part of. It's a pillar when it comes
it's
to.
A pillar. So I think
you can only communicate if you are able to build a rapport with the person. So empathy is critical in doing that.
Empathy. And in fact, today, if you look, Dr. Nada, you might ask, how are we actually building that into our curriculum? It has gone to an extent where today we are teaching students design thinking with a 6-pillar framework, where the first pillar of design thinking is to be empathetic. Empathy is the first pillar of design thinking. But the question is, as I'm just trying to relate with Dr. Narahari's question, which says hands-on training experience, just knowing what is empathetic doesn't help. But by being in a situation where you can demonstrate to be empathetic, and showing how you can be empathy, you can show empathy is much more important. So I think whatever theoretical construct business management is made about, there has to be a hands-on practical application, and there has to be an outcome-driven learning which can bridge the gap more.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to see one of my students in the chat, actually, Sumit Panchal, who has provided a very insightful comment. Bravo to you, Sumit. He's saying that with the dynamic business environment and technological advancements, sustainability and strategic thinking, effective marketing has evolved as a key skill to be developed along with a diverse curriculum that touches all the major business aspects in stipulated 18-24 months program, well explained by speakers. Thank you, Sumit.
Sumit proves that still now he has remained a wonderful student as he was in the school.
Yeah. All right. So we had a question by Parul Mishra about the recording, and Urmil has provided the answer that yes, it will be recorded. So now I'm going to move to the next question. And for the audience, please feel free to type in the chat if you have any question. We will do our best in the next 19 minutes to clear any doubts you might have or some question that you want answered. So this is a good platform to ask your questions. So now my question is to my panel. How do you think the upcoming technological changes, such as the metaverse and now generative AI, such as ChatGPT, I mean, it's all over the news. How do you think these will impact the teaching learning gap? Dr. Arindam, you want to take the first go?
Oh, okay. In simple words, it would make our lives as instructor very challenging. It would make the lives of students very easy, but there's the catch. If they think so, it's easy. It is not so. If technology is not harnessed in a proper way, it can always work against us. In the context of a discussion, we are talking about how can learning and teaching, is there a gap, and are we able to bridge that gap? Let's be very focused on our discussion point. Today, the advancement in technology have far paced the way we can even think of those advancements. And business schools like ours, who have been able to harness those technologies, has always been at the forefront of improving both our delivery, our content, and the quality of the output of our students. So today, there has to be a very stronger emphasis across the content in terms of, if you are in finance, you cannot stay away without bringing in robo-advisory as one of the important platforms. I'm talking from the standpoint of a finance professor, because today a lot of important aspects is robo-advisory. Today it might be much bigger. If you're in information technology, then metaverse is going to change your experience for a lifetime. You are going to shop in France in a shop called Auchan by being in Dubai and an Indian. So you can imagine you're truly global now. You don't have to move across. So I think pertinent to the discussion, as business schools today, there has to be a very important aspect of technology enhancement in terms of both the content as well as the delivery to our students.
I think,
Arindam?
Dr. Nada, if you allow me to, I would want to give a simile, and which is a very, very realistic simile to what the question you asked. So I would like to draw your attention. During the pandemic, the schools went online. Technology was changing the world of learning. People were, students were sitting at home and learning. And we have seen that, the impact of direct schooling versus, there were a lot of WhatsApp jokes that, people do not have the intake of 22 batch or 2021 batch because, they believed that the learning curve was not that sharp as it was in the schools. Similarly, in my industry, I just want to give an example. So, is there technology going to replace the brick and mortar model of hospitals, clinics, doctors, and doctor-patient interaction? So, say today, telemedicine is being an extremely well tool, and metaverse tomorrow is going to change the whole telemedicine platform. Metaverse is going to give a complete experience that the patient is seen as if it is seen really. But is it the replacement of the doctor patient contact, or is it the replacement of doctor patient relationship? And I would say that, similarly in learning or teaching and learning, this is complementary, not replacement. Technology cannot replace the brick and mortar structure of the schooling, the interaction, and the experiential learning. You can download n number of papers from ChatGPT, but the experiential learning, which, which Professor Arindam talking in front of you and, giving the right examples. So the contextual learning which happens with the technology adds in. And I think, from the human behavior point of view, or if you see from the amygdala, which is responsible for, I'm talking a bit medicine now, so I'm which is responsible for keeping memory and grasping power and all that, is much higher as compared to a technology on a or 2D platform which is seen versus a 3D platform wherein experiential learning happens. So I think, we have to understand that, yes, for the technology to adapt to the conditions and, the schools to embark on the journey of technology, what we need to have a tech literacy, access more resources, soft and hard, collaboration with peers, update the industry's knowledge, and all these things are absolutely necessary. But the bottom line remains the same, that technology is synergistic, not a replacement.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atul. Ms. Kushagra, do you want to add something?
Yes, I think in my view, technology is something that we have no choice but to embrace. And I think the sooner we embrace it and find how to work with it, we will be in a more advantageous position and realize that it is there for our betterment. Right. I think the more resistance we have to that change is probably to our own detriment. Right. Whether I'm a student or I'm a business school. And if you would ask me, I'm just thinking, right, that I've been part of, let's say, this consultancy firm, right? I was with the Big Four in EY, where we do a lot of auditing and a lot of financial data crunching work, right? And I know that there are now robots or bots who are actually doing a large part of the audit work, right? And your role as an auditor now is not in the typical vouching work. You are actually now only working in the data insights part, right? So I would actually say the role of the B school will probably increase, because the people who are doing a more clerical stuff is are at a greater threat, right, with respect to technology being automating some of this stuff, right? But the B school is actually helping you bring in the analytical mindset, which is something that technology will not be able to replace, or not be able to replace to the greater degree, right? To some extent, yes, with the AI coming in, means it's never say never with technology, but still, the value add that, as Dr. Atul mentioned, in healthcare, for example, that human touch, that human insight of making sense of the data, is something that will always be relevant, and that is what will be the role of humans, right? So I think that is where probably B schools will probably have more demand, if I think out, with a lot of the basic stuff that we would, let's say, typically start off doing with, being now replaced by technology, right? So the companies would say, I don't need to hire people to do the basic accounting work. That is something that technology is doing. I need people who would come in, with that mindset that they can look at 3 different data sets together and make sense of it, rather than actually building the data set.
Okay, thank you so much. So another question, how do you think The teaching learning gap will evolve over the next 5 to 10 years. And the strategies to adapt to this changing demands for prospective MBA students in the light of the changing job market.
Can I come in, Nada?
Sure, go ahead.
Dr. Nada, I think, first of all, we'll have to take out this assumption that the current MBA program or futuristic MBA program is going to create a kind of a seamless supply for the job market. No, I think the expectations of this is what exactly we were talking about before the session started, that the MBA students, the intake which is happening now, the buzzword is startup, the buzzword is innovation, the buzzword is going on your own. So today, people are not coming to MBA schools to get a good job or a salary or a kind of a annuity of a assured amount of money coming to their account. But people I'm seeing the kids today are their aspirational values are coming to how do I create a wealth, how do I create a legacy. So I think somewhere during the course we will have to, as the thought leaders of the management program, the MBA schools will have to come up with customization to create more startup leaders, to create more founders, to create more business people, than create more employees. I think that lies there lies a $1 million question, that are we adopting to creating more leaders, or we are adapting to adopting to create more employees. Number one. Number two, going for the 5 to 10 years range, we will definitely are going to see that the 5 to 10 years from now. See, I'll give you an example. So now today in UAE, we are very much driven by the startups. We are very much driven by the companies getting listed, the IPOs coming, and I think that is giving a cutting edge environment in the business. And people who earlier used to say that oh, I want to raise a funding from private equity or a venture capitalist, today they are not talking about that, and they're saying that no, I want to go private, I want to go public. And I think this change has happened, mindset has happened, which has impacted the newer generation. With the smartphones and smart televisions, we have smart kids as well. So these smart kids think smarter way, and I think the MBA schools or the B schools will have to adapt to the smarter options and customizations of the program. And the whole curriculum has to be redefined as per the growing needs and the changing innovative needs of our consumers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Atul. Dr. Banerjee, did you want to add something?
I think what we have seen, just taking off from where Dr. Atul has spoken, we have seen, I would say, a surge of risk takers over the past 5 years. When I say risk takers, these are primarily the to-be entrepreneurs. We haven't seen such a surge, at least in this part of the world, or even from where we come across, that is India, which has created more unicorns in the last couple of years than we have ever seen. Now, where it is all coming from? It is all coming because more number of opportunities have evolved. And this opportunity has evolved primarily because of technological embracement. Most of these are not the typical brick and mortar factory-led models. These are businesses which are done virtually, where you can reach from one to many. Just to give you an example, the world's largest valued company today, you may not agree with me, is not Amazon, it is not Shell, it is not any other Apple computers or Alphabet that you can think of, but it is a small company out of a very small province in China which simply sells clothes online called Shein. And the guy's age is not more than 30 years, basically. And the unprecedented growth that he has seen in his business post-COVID is beyond anybody's even imagination. Now, what we are talking about is how can we ensure that our students, MBA students, are also part of this growth story? One, Of course, we need to create the leaders, but we have to bring the attributes of the leadership into the curriculum. And a few attributes that we don't bring are more important than what we bring. We don't allow the students to fail. We don't allow students to take more risk than what they should be taking. We need to adapt and bring those, which means we in a curriculum has to expose our student to situations which they have never ever even believed can exist. And when they're confronted, they do not know how to tackle. It is better to be confronted with those situations in the school setup as a student rather than facing those in the real world and getting an impact which is much more difficult to adapt. So I think, as Dr. Atul and Kushagra also has spoken, there is huge opportunity coming from various platforms, and more are going to come. And we need to bring in those elements into the curriculum sooner or later.
And Dr. Nada, if I can add
Yes,
to what Dr. Banerjee
sure,
is saying,
Mr. Kushagra.
the point about allowing students to fail, and this also touches upon the point, touches upon the point of emotional quotient, right? The ability to deal with a setback, okay, is something that I have seen lacking in very fresh graduates. And that moment and this directly impacts their ability to take feedback, right? Because they have not been challenged and probably shown the mirror very clearly. It's always been, okay, you have underperformed, but fine. But no, this is not how the real world works, right? It is cutthroat. So I think in the MBA, if that is one point we have to pick up, it is really to give that environment. Well, students feel challenged, they will have the setbacks, but they will also have the support and the ecosystem to manage the setbacks, so that they are better placed when wherever they come go out of when they come out of the B school, whether it's their own business, whether it's a corporate world. Because honestly, in the corporate world, it's not like the old days of hierarchical, there is a lot of entrepreneurship within the structure, right? And you really need to drive your own growth in the corporate world. You cannot expect, let's say, your manager is looking out for you, right? This is how the new age corporate world works. So I think that is a very, very important point that Dr. Banerjee touched upon. And that's really, if you would say, one area of focus that every B school should look at. And one other element that I think should be in terms of the curriculum is for B schools to be a little bit futuristic and bringing opinions in their content rather than only looking at the past, right? So, for example, if I am looking at automobile, I need to be talking about driverless cars in my content, not what, let's say, a Ford and GM did 10 years ago and learn from that. Okay, learning from the assembly line setup as a case study is great, but that's not going to be relevant 2 years down the line. Probably not even EV. I need to talk about driverless cars, autonomous driving, those things, right? So bring in that element, and let students brainstorm and, think on those things, and probably deal with a lot of ambiguity, learn to deal with ambiguity.
That's a very good point, and this is exactly what we encourage.
Dr. Nada,
yes.
If you allow me, I'll just, before you take up. I mean, I have done a kind of a study, I would say, not a very structured, in trying to assess the success of a student post 5 years post the program and their success as a student. And there doesn't seem to be a kind of very uniform outcome. That doesn't mean that Dr. Atul and Kushagra hasn't been my good student. They were extraordinarily good student. But overall, no, on a serious note, overall, as I said, the students are very much, I would say, overwhelmed in terms of the theoretical assessment of their GPAs. And whenever they see that their GPAs do come down, they feel they have lost something very important as a part of MBA curriculum. Obviously, because they come from an education background where that is given a prevalence, but not in a professional program like an MBA. And you understand where it is going. It is going back again into the loop where the teachers again try to tell them, okay, don't worry, read a little more and you will do better, which is basically entering into a vicious cycle of study more, get good grades, and that defines you as a good student, at least for the time being, which they realize after 5 years, 10 years, that that has never been the case. My success is more about how practically I deal with people, about situation, about circumstances, and how I deal with setbacks and negativities, more than what I have learned in terms, that is very important, more than the theoretical construct. So just to bridge that, I mean, what Kushagra was mentioning, I think this is something which is very important, and we will see it more in years to come.
Thank you
Dr.
very much.
Nada, just to add to,
Um,
sorry, I'm just coming in.
yeah, just give me a second. Thank you so much, Dr. Arindam, for this interesting insights. I see that all the speakers are excited now, and I will give you the floor, Dr. Atul. Just give me 1 second. And this is exactly what we noticed, Dr. Arindam, in the MBA program. A lot of students come with this fear of failing, and we provide, in the MBA, a safe environment, and we encourage them to make those mistakes. And throughout the program, they see, by making mistakes, this is how I learn, and they demystify this fear. Also, when you do an MBA, what happens is that you go out of your comfort zone. So learning, they also develop that agility to not be afraid to go out of their comfort zone and touch finance. If they were scared before by numbers, many of them would discover, oh no, at the end of the day, I like finance, or oh, I like operations, I have a passion for marketing. So this teaches them to demystify all these dark or gray areas that they are not used to. So I have a comment in the chat from another student of mine, Kavita. Nice to see you. Absolutely agree with Dr. Arindam on incorporating technology and latest trends makes the knowledge more valuable. So Dr. Atul, the floor is yours now to bring your insights.
No. I think I was just adding to what Dr. Arindam had said, that, Dr. Abdul Kalam, our president and scientist, had always said that I learned more from my failure than from my success. And I think, the biggest part of learning comes not out of success, but it comes out of failure. And I think somewhere down the lane in MBA programs, I think we should celebrate the failures. In the sense, I am not saying celebrate in the other way around, but I think, we should prepare our students and our intake to adopt to failures, and failure is just part of extended efforts and how they can improvise that way. And I think, for that, somehow the empowerment of the students has to be done. And I think that is the greatest part of learning, empowering the students to fail.
That's a very insightful, Dr. Atul. So Irfan, just type your question and we can answer it. So I think we have time for one more question. So please go ahead and type it in the comments. So Dr. Atul, you are so right. And often what happens is that when you take these billionaires and these very famous entrepreneurs, they never talk about their failures. They talk mostly about what they've made, and people ask them about their successes. But now this taboo is being lifted, and we see that when you go to these entrepreneurial conferences or talks, all of them are saying, this is, I got there because I have failed so many times. And in so many times I was confused, especially when you're an entrepreneur, you're a trailblazer, you don't know the way, so you have to pave that way. And people fail so many times, and this is why they succeed, because every failure is an opportunity to learn. So that's a very good point, Dr. Atul. So I don't see we have any more questions in the comments section. So I'm going to give you each 20 seconds for a the final word of the session. And I'm going to start with Dr. Arindam. Yes, what's your final word about bridging the teaching and learning gap in an MBA?
For students, I would say stay focused, stay relevant. There is too much information. Know how to dig the right information. That's very important. And for teachers, I would say for us, adapt as quick as possible or you will become obsolete. For business schools, of course, it's very simple, which I learned from my own business school. Invest in technology. Technology is going to be a key enabler for future student. And that's very important. So I think for three stakeholders, these are very important points from my standpoint.
Thank you so much, Dr. Meanwhile, a question popped up. So before I move to the final word of Dr. Atul, Irfan is asking his question that he has been trying to type for a little bit. So how the executive MBA program will help a person with around 15 plus experience in IT, and what are the measures of success? So who wants to take that?
Nobody better than Dr. Atul.
Thank you very much, sir. Basically, I came in the classroom after 18 years of clinical practice. And the question is very relevant when somebody says 15 years of IT. So 15 years of IT or healthcare gives you domain expertise. And you think the gap between you and God is 2 centimeters or maybe 1 inch. So, once you come to EMBA, Executive MBA teaches you the basics of the business, which is not taught to you in your domain expertise. Domain expertise is one part of it, but having overall knowledge is most important for business learning. Business typically business learning is not about having in-depth knowledge about a particular subject or a particular technology. Business knowledge is knowing everything about everything. It's not knowing something about everything. And I think EMBA program, and I'm glad to say that I'm blessed. I was blessed to be a alumni of a student of SB Jain, and I had beautiful faculties with me. So and the best part is it prepares you to do business with the professional ethics of doing business, and I think that is most important. Your domain expertise will teach you how to do your part of it, but the overall business learning happens with EMBA.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atul. And we have Dr. Shandan Baj, who completely agrees with you regarding startup MBA. It has to be a separate branch altogether. So that's Dr. Shandan's point of view. Thank you for these questions. And you made Irfan Mulani laugh. He's like, ha, ha, ha. All right. So I'm going to give you then the final word, Dr. Atul. In 20 seconds, if you can tell us what is your final word about the topic of bridging the teaching and learning gap in MBA.
Okay, my 20 seconds starts now. So, Professor Arindam said about 3 pillars. I will talk about 4 pillars. For students, they have to be, as you precisely said, Dr. Nada, I'll borrow your words, that there are beautiful programs in management schools, but you have to run your way. You have to find your path. And you have to be, as Professor Arindam said, yes, you have to be focused. I'll add alumni in this. Alumni, like me, we have a responsibility to co-create a kind of a growth story for the students and for the society, that we take up the school's name to a different zenith when we talk about providing the knowledge leadership. For businesses, obviously it is important that when we go to campus to pick up students from management schools, it is not the name of the management school, or it is not the the professional aspects of the student, but more than that, they should lead. They should look at the leadership and the soft skills of people, and I think that is most important. And for the business school and the curriculum, I think this particularly joining the gap of technology and in school learning has to be the most important part of it, and we have to be relevant to the changes in the market. That's all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Atul. Mr. Kushagra, 20 minutes. Final word.
20 minutes.
20 seconds. 20 seconds.
So I think this change can only come if all stakeholders, and when I say all stakeholders, the B school, the students, the alumni, the industry, are all engaged and involved in a very meaningful way. It has to be led by the school because that's like the epicenter. But all of these different elements have to come together in not just a superficial way. It has to be very meaningful every stakeholder engaging and, having, giving that thought into the process. And I would say for the students, uh, they need to use the platform to build the ability to take decisions. Decisiveness is something that you need when you enter, you're managing a business, you're in the corporate world at every level. Whether it's your first job, you need to take decisions, right? You need to have your opinions and have the confidence to back it with facts. Because if I have someone who does not have an opinion on the subject, for good or bad, he is not valuable to me. I might disagree with an opinion, but I would always value a person who has an opinion, right? And then has is the ability to back it with facts. And for the B schools, I think it's very important to find your own niche, right? There is this whole world where you have so many B schools, who are giving this MBA. Just kind of having that focus that this is where we specialize in. This is the type of students and leaders we are able to create. Educate and then educate the ecosystem around that. That you when you come to us, this is the quality and the output we can give you, right? Because no B school can cater to every needs of the society. I think that's practically impossible. So for that B school, I think it's very, very important.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kushagra. I would like to thank all my speakers today, Dr. Arindam, Dr. Atul, Mr. Kushagra, for their wonderful intervention, ideas, exchange. This has been a great session. I hope that the audience get the most learning out of it. So I will wrap it up at this point. Thank you to the audience for all your questions. And I will leave you here. Thank you very much.
Dr. Nada, thanks from all of us from being wonderfully moderated a session.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So
thank
take
you,
care.
everybody. Thank you, co-panelists, and Dr. Nada, especially thank you to you that you carried us through the discussion and you stopped us wherever we were going a bit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great connecting to all of you.
Thank you so much. And connect with us through LinkedIn. We are available there, so feel free to do that. So lovely having you as an audience, lovely having you as a speaker, and I will let you go now. Take care. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night to everybody. Good night.